Shalom, shalom. I want to start off as always, of course, giving infinite praise, worship, and glory, and honor, and to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Racha, Ha, Chodash. Double honors to our apostles and our elders of great millstone, who rule well, teach well, and sound doctrine to this very day, being a great example to the ministry and the body of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. Strong shalom to the hopeful elect. May your houses be blessed in these last days. Just a quick example of a Deuteronomy 28 curse. This is it says this is an article by the NPR. It came out May 3rd, 2017. It says a forgotten history of how the U.S. government segregated America. Okay. Now this is dealing with the housing policies. All right. It says in 1933, faced with housing shortages, the federal government began a program explicitly designed to increase and segregate American housing stock. Let's go down. It says the government's effort were primarily designed to provide housing to white middle class, lower middle class families. He says, which there is no such thing as a middle class. All right. There's never been a such thing called a middle class. That you always had rich and you always had poor. The middle class is just was a stumbling block put in there. Okay, used to bring in other draconian measures and to bring in other, laws and things that they were trying to push according to the NWO. That middle class was put in there. So then when you surround a whole system and society based around this concept, and then you take that out, it causes havoc on the minds of the people, because really the people thought they was in the middle class, but really they were poor the whole time. You see, that's why Revelations 13 say he calls us all both rich and poor, not rich, middle class, and no, it's rich and poor. African Americans and other people of color were left out of the new suburban communities and pushed instead into urban housing projects. Okay. Urban housing projects. It says Rothstein's new book, The Color of Law, examines the local, state, and federal housing policies that mandated segregation. He notes that the Federal Housing Administration, which was established in 1934, furthered the segregation efforts by refusing to insure mortgages in and near African American neighborhoods, a policy known as redlining. At the same time, the FHA was subsidizing builders who were mass producing entire subdivisions for whites, with the requirement that none of the homes be sold to African Americans. Right? Now, why us? Why us? See, these people got a lot of nerve and they got lots to say, but nobody ever look at why us. It's okay for us to serve Egyptians and all these different other things, but as soon as we say we're the people of the book, it's a problem. As soon as we say the curses is talking about us, it's a problem. Anything that we relate ourselves to the scriptures, but they supposed to say the Most High love everybody, this, that, and the third, it's a problem. Now, a lot of these government programs were designed, like it says, the FHA was subsidizing builders who were mass producing entire subdivisions for whites. But a lot of these government programs were to be given to whites. I forgot certain ones. I forgot the specific ones, but they were created for so-called middle class whites. But really, like we see past the surface. They say these things were created for this and that, but really they have them secret councils, like Psalms 83, First Maccabees 3. they have these secret councils and these meetings to come up how to keep the Israelite man and woman and child down. The blacks, Hispanics, and so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native American and Seminole Indians. Okay, and all the speckled bird that may look like the other nations but really are Israelites. Because it's not about skin color. Esau made it about skin color. You know, it's about the spirit. And really, that spirit bloodline goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know, how can you say if a so-called white man that's not of the bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the promise was to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the Lord came to die, and it's like it says in Acts, to give remission and repentance to the to Israel for their sins, so that they could come back and receive the promise that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you were talking about you can get that same promise. It never was the case in the Bible, ever, not once. So you have a system, you have a policy here called redlining. All right. Now this it says interactive redlining map zooms in on America's history of discrimination. Now when you look at redlining was just a term. Redlining is a term in terms of like, you know, you how do I put it? Matter of fact, I'm gonna just show you the definition. My son calling me. Relax, bro. Alright, it says red line.
Red line.
Drive, see, that's some bullshit. So it says, number 2, refuse a loan or insurance to someone because they live in an area deemed to be a poor financial risk. You see? And that's what redlining is. Okay? It's like a cutoff. Okay? It's crazy because like literally all the streets, majority of the streets in Cleveland, like the once suburbs that's not really suburbs no more, like Warrensville, Shaker, you know, Garfield Heights, you know, these like Beechwood, like certain parts of Beechwood, like these areas were supposed to be for whites only in a sense, right? Because I do a lot of deliveries and with different stuff, and when I be going to these different neighborhoods, and they be really having their own lives, man. Like you see the pandemic in the world, these people are like, what pandemic? You know, because when you go into these gated communities, like, bro, it really be like a whole different world. The housing structure be different. Everybody, so a lot of them don't even have blinds on their houses, you know, because that's what they this is their kingdom, you know, and this is how you know this is not our kingdom, because we have no rest. Our life hang in doubt. That's the scripture say, as the curses say, you know, we got to look left and right every day, watching our backs. These people are in neighborhoods where, you know, they have no worries. They're at rest. They're at peace. And then you might say, well, what about the whites? That's poor. Well, that's because this man is the devil, man. You know, any nation, any king and rulership that has his people at a low state like that is a devil. That don't prove anything, man. You know, when Israel ruled, we never had our people in poverty, man. You know, we the whole nation eats, man. You know, but that's what redlining is, and that's why it says a policy known as redlining. You know, and it says this is an example of redlining you see on this map right here. All that red is like areas where that's like projects, like I was saying, like you got like streets, like certain streets might be like the suburbs, and then it might have a sign at the end of the stop sign that say Cleveland. Okay, now it's a completely different zone structure. Okay, because everything in America is broken up to zones. Okay, you have, like the scriptures say, you have in Revelations, the 10th part of the city fell. Roughly paraphrasing, that's talking about the 10 zones in America. America is broken up into 10 regions or 10 zones. Okay, and and that's how they do their cities too. Okay, in their structures, and they break them up according to zones to keep track of the areas and numbers, and they want to keep track of the cattle. Break it up into zones, break it up into sections, break and the people that's in those sections break it up according to the people that's in those sections, which is why you got the Census Bureau and so forth, which is really set up to keep track of Israel. Like when Satan came to David to number the children of Israel, and the Most High commanded him, "Don't do that." You know, we're not supposed to be participating in the Census Bureau and etc. Man, you know. But this is a quick example of redlining, man. But then you have something called ghetto, right? Now look how they changed the definition of ghetto.
Ghetto.
A part of a city, especially a slum area, occupied by a minority group or groups, put in or restrict to an isolated or segregated area or group, you know? And that's where we live. We live in a ghetto, all right? We live in a ghetto. The only one that used that term, okay, is Israel. And the so-called whites that live amongst Jake in these ghettos, they're not whites. Those are Israelites, man. Those are Israelites, man. I know a few, you know, and based off their spirit and how they move and how they talk, you know, like an Eminem, you know, like a Marky Mark. Those are Israelites, man. You know, and it's not about, like I said, it's not about skin color. It's about these curses. It's about the things, the sign that the Lord put on us. Deuteronomy 28:46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. They be like, well, that happened already. Well, he just told you in verse 46, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. A lot of these curses did happen already, but they carry on with us through every captivity. Because that was supposed to be that was supposed to be a token or a sign to know who the people were. You see, the scriptures say you should build, but not live in them. You know, like in this chapter, same chapter. I'm not gonna go through it, but I just wanted to make this quick point and show like a quick example, of how these curses is overtook Jake, man. You know, overtook us, man. 62. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy power. And that's what minority means. Few. Let's just get it. The smaller number or part, especially a number that is less than half the whole number. That's why they call us minorities. But we're really the majority. You can't number us. It's so many of us. But they break us up and put us into sections to try to divide us from and to make us look smaller than we are. You see? And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people. That's why we became the minority, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. That's why you have the Christian cross and the cobblestone, which majority of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans worship. You know, out of all nations, the black, Hispanics, and Native Americans mainly worship Christianity, not Christianity according to the Bible, modern day Christianity, Cesare Borgia, the image of the beast, dealing with NATO and the EU, this system, that Christianity that came over here on those boats and conquered the natives and so forth. Okay, the Edomite Christianity. Okay, what's his name? heinous, not was it heinous? That was I believe I believe I'm saying that right. That around his time, they were taught our ways, which is where you get Judaism from, okay, and all this concept. You got the Kabbalah and all these different things, but that's because they were forced to be taught our ways, and they came up with their own version, and that's the version they keep today. That's why the 1948ers wear those hats that they wear and them curls coming out they shit. You know, you gotta. Man, this how bugged out everybody is, man. You got a group of people in the world that claim to be the Jews, but nobody ever says anything about them and try to go toward them. Well, they're claiming to be the Jews too. Why aren't you going to their communities and going to their sects and their synagogues and telling them they're wrong? 66, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee. Thou shalt fear day and night and shall have no assurance of thy life. And that's why, they have this thing called redlining. Put us in this community. Now we're just crabs in a bucket. Ghetto. All right, look at the ancient, more of an older definition of ghetto, formerly a street or quarter of a city set apart as legally enforced residence area for Jews. You see, for Jews. One of the earliest forced segregations of Jews was in Muslim Morocco, when in 1280 they were transferred to segregated quarters called milas. In some Muslim countries, rigid ghetto systems were enforced with restrictions on the sizes of houses and doors. You see, you deprive them and put them in the smaller huts. Forced segregation of Jews spread throughout Europe during the 14th and 15th century. And it says German Jewtown, Judens taught. It says were renowned. Jews were numerous enough to constitute a majority of the population in many cities and towns, which they occupied entire quarters. The name ghetto probably derived from an iron foundry, and it was first used in Venice, 1516. That year, an area for Jewish settlement was set aside, shut off from the rest of the city, and provided with Christian watchmen. It became a model for ghettos in Italy. But this really goes into, it says the ghettos were enclosed with walls and gates and kept locked at night and during church festivals, which as Holy Week, when anti-Semitic outbursts were particularly likely because of the alleged guilt of the Jews in the crucifixion of Hamashiach. Right now, I was going into something else, but the point is that the ghetto was a place. It's a place where the Jews reside, and that's it. And that's why they have the ghettos sanctioned on you blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. But then you see here, like the twist of it was they locked themselves in these gated communities, right? To protect themselves from anyone that was so-called anti-Semitic. So which a lot of the families on the earth today, a lot of because you only have the brothers, Ham, Japheth, and Shem, right? The only ones that can be anti-Semitic are the ones that didn't come from Shem. The so-called white man and the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans come from the line of Shem. The so-called white man is a Hebrew. He's just not a Hebrew Israelite, because Israel name is a man's name, which was changed from Jacob or Yaquab to Yasha'Allah. You see? So I just wanted a quick example of how these things play out into modern day Jewry. Ghetto, a part of the city which Jews are compelled to live. And it says at the bottom, it says especially blacks in U.S. cities. You see? So that's showing you that they like to tell you the truth right in your face, and you won't get it because the so-called black man Hispanic man, Native woman, and child does not read. Jury, a ghetto, the Jewish district in a town. So Lord willing, it's edifying. Until next time, see you on the next episode.